Welcome to a new episode of this series as we run up to fulfilment of Time of Legend's Joan of Arc. Today we look into the important events of Joan of Arc's life. To keep up to date with this series, make sure you subscribe to this channel and click on the notification bell so you know when something new goes live. Also be sure to stay until the end where I'll tell you how you can be in with a chance of winning one of the expansions for the game. And as usual, apologies in advance for any butchering of the French language or pronunciation of French words you hear in this video. So let's get started. In January 1412, Joan was born to Jacques d'Arc, a Roman Catholic farmer, and his wife Isabelle Romy in the village of Domremy, situated near Burgundy. It's important to understand the world she was growing up in, so we'll momentarily take a look at the state of France at that time. In 1415, when Joan was just 3 years old, the English defeated a much larger French force at the Battle of Agincourt. This was a pivotal battle in the 100 Years' War and massively reduced France's territories and power. Any idea of overall French victory looked highly unlikely. In 1420, King of England Henry V forced King of France Charles VI to sign the Treaty of Troyes, which made Henry or his offspring heir to the French throne upon Charles VI's death. In 1422, Henry V died from dysentery. He was succeeded by his infant son, who was also called Henry, who, under the terms of the Treaty of Troyes, was now heir to the French throne. A few months later, Charles VI of France died, meaning that toddler Henry should have been crowned king. Obviously, he was too young to do so, so France was ruled in his stead by John of Lancaster, the Duke of Bedford, until the boy was old enough to take over. Obviously, the French wanted the English out, and Charles VI's son, the Dauphin, to be crowned King Charles VII. Dauphin is a term used for the eldest son of the King of France. Okay, so back to Joan. In 1425, a 13-year-old Joan began to have visions where she saw Archangel Michael, St. Margaret and St. Catherine of Alexandria. She also heard the voice of God telling her to drive the English out of France and to take the Dauphin to Reims for his coronation. A few years later, Joan went to speak to a garrison commander called Robert de Baudricourt. She explained the visions to him and told him that she wanted to join the Dauphin, but he didn't believe her story and she was sent away. Shortly after this, the English started their siege of Orleans. January 1429, Joan went to Robert again and pleaded with him to let her join the Dauphin. Her request was accepted only after she revealed details about a very recent French defeat in the Battle of the Herrings at Orleans. These details were disclosed by Joan even before official messengers arrived with the exact same information. She dressed in men's clothing and began the journey to Chinon, where she had an audience with the Dauphin Charles and asked to be allowed to help fight the English. Her confidence, persistence and conviction persuaded the Dauphin that she genuinely did have God on her side. Charles ordered that Joan be physically examined to prove that she was a girl, and also interrogated by church officials to determine the truth of her visions. In early April, Joan was given command of a small armed force. She was presented with a suit of armour and a banner. Joan declared that a sword was waiting for her in the church of Sainte Catherine de Fierbois, and it was found in the place she described and brought to her. She then joined her army. She and her troops marched to relieve French forces at the siege of Orleans, where Jean de Dormois launched an assault against the English at Saint-Loup. The assault failed and the French fell back. However, Joan led a new attack on the English and captured the fortress. Soon after that, Joan and her troops took a number of other English-held territories. In May, Joan led French troops to the Battle of Les Tourelles. She predicted that she would be injured during the battle and was struck by an arrow, causing the French to retreat. However, after removing the arrow herself, she led the French on a new successful assault. Within days, the English withdrew from Orleans. 2 days later, she and her troops left Orleans to launch a new campaign where she quickly regained a number of towns and villages from English control. By the end of June, she led the French troops to another decisive victory over the English, led by Lord Talbot at Patay. Soon after, Joan and her troops placed Troyes under siege, and the English force there surrendered to the French within a week. On the 16th of July, the city of Reims welcomed Joan of Arc and Charles the Dauphin. A day later, the Dauphin was crowned King Charles VII of France in the cathedral. Joan stood by his side holding her banner. Following from this, Joan and the French army went on to liberate a number of other areas from English control, and even took on the forces of John of Lancaster himself at Montepilloy, forcing the English to withdraw. In September, the French troops marched on Paris, where Joan was hit in the leg with a crossbow bolt. She refused to retire and, though badly injured, urged the French to continue. However, she was carried from the field of battle and the French withdrew. But in November, a recovered Joan led a small force and took a few more towns. By the end of 1429, Joan and her family were made members of the French nobility. After regaining more ground from the English, Joan was eventually captured by a Burgundian force. She was held captive for some time until November 1430. The Burgundians sold Joan to the English, who charged her with 70 offences, including witchcraft, heresy and cross-dressing. She was held in prison, shackled to the bed. Between January and March 1431, she was tried of these offences both privately and publicly, until she signed an abjuration admitting she had not heard any voices or seen any angels. Soon after, she rejected this abjuration and was immediately charged with heresy and found guilty. On the 30th of May 1431, Joan of Arc was burnt at the stake in Rouen. A posthumous retrial a few years later at the end of the 100 Years' War would find Joan of Arc not guilty, and she was declared a martyr. In 1920, she was made a saint by Pope Benedict XV. We can only really guess at what kind of person Joan might have been. She certainly wouldn't have been an angel-faced Catholic daughter of a farmer, but she likely would have been very forceful with a great strength of will. If historical reports are to be believed, she shirked injury to try and remain in the fight and conducted battles on a very regular basis. In fact, she was only involved with the fighting part of the war for around about a year, but in that time she took part in a huge amount of battles and skirmishes and retook countless towns and villages. She was assertive with her comrades too, none so much perhaps than Jean de Dunois, who she threatened to cut off his head if he didn't keep her informed of certain details. After Joan's death, France would push toward consistent victories until England eventually withdrew, ending the 100 Years' War. Our next episode will focus on the Ottoman Empire under Mehmed the Conqueror, and we will also discuss the Prince of Wallachia, Vlad Tepes. Before I go, I just want to let you know about a quick competition that I'm going to be running over the course of this series if it proves to be popular. It's too late now to add to your pledges, but I've added an extra expansion myself that I'm going to give away as a prize when I do the unboxing of the game in a few months' time. All you need to do to be in with a chance of winning is subscribe to my channel and comment on any of my Joan of Arc videos. And if this series proves to be successful, I'll pull a winner out of the hat and send them the surprise expansion. So thanks very much for watching, and I shall see you next week.